All right. My name is Chris Hinsz. I am a Director of Product Marketing here at Fortinet. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of the Fortinet portfolio. Now, we know that on the whole, when you start talking about networking, and particularly wireless networking, obviously access points is part of that. But we also understand that in this day and age, people are looking for more than just an AP. Wireless isn't just the RF these days. So while we do have the FortiAP to solve that, people what do they look for? They're looking for something to help with control and management. We actually have three possibilities for that, and I'm going to go over those. But we hear even more. We hear people saying, hey, I struggle with onboarding. How do I get a guest device on? How do I get an employee on? And we have a solution for that as well that I'll talk about. Okay, well, what about analytics? In fact, we heard some voices on Twitter saying, hey, guys at Fortinet, I really want to hear you guys talk about your analytics today. So you'll actually hear one of my compatriots speak about analytics later on today. That's part of our presentation because we heard you. And we have a solution around analytics because we're seeing more and more that that's important. In addition, IoT, I know it's a buzzword, but from us, particularly from a security perspective, it's a real challenge, particularly in the wireless world. And we have a product that we can bring to bear to help people secure their IoT. These days, obviously, IT is getting thinner and thinner. So people are always looking for a way to make deployment easier, particularly in distributed enterprise situations. And we can bring a solution to bear there as well. Now, I think it's kind of interesting when you look at what we see bridging onto wireless more and more. One of those for us that's been kind of surprising was SD-WAN. We got involved in SD-WAN, not from the wireless perspective, but because we thought it was an important feature. And what we've noticed is this has a lot of correlation with our wireless sales. So for those of you deploying a network and need SD-WAN, we've got that. In fact, maybe you're not looking for just SD-WAN, but maybe you actually need the WAN connectivity itself. We actually have the ability to provide a box to give you that WAN connectivity. And finally, at the end of the day, we do realize that pretty much every piece of equipment that you've got, especially all this wireless stuff, is going to plug back into a wire. Sadly, at some point in time, we still haven't gotten rid of those pesky wires. In fact, I don't know, what, 40, 50 of them on the table. And we've got a solution for that as well. So let's move through this. Talk about them. Starting obviously with the most obvious, the FortiAPs. So we do have access points. We pretty much have all the access points you guys would expect us to have. We've got indoor, we've got outdoor, we've got wall plates. We've got 2x2s, 3x3s, 4x4s. There are three main families of our access points that you're going to hear a lot about. You'll notice as I go through this presentation, you may have already noticed as all the product names going by, we like naming things Forti and then what it is. So our FortiAPs are, oftentimes you'll hear me call them an FAP. So that's FortiAP. So we have a FAP line of access points. That's our standard line. We have an FAPS. That's kind of our smart access point. It actually has UTM capabilities on board. We see a lot of people liking that for like remote deployments, or maybe that's the only thing on site that may be able to provide those services at the location. And then we have our FAPU line of APs, which is our universal. And I'll touch a little bit more on what the universal means in a half second. The next thing really comes down to control and management. And one of the nice things is we are not trying to force the issue with control and management. We actually have three possibilities, and we let the customer decide what they want to do. So if they are a person who believes in controllers, and actually I saw your blog not that long ago talking about controllers are not dead. And yeah, we agree. There's places where they make sense and where people want to use them. So we have that. We have a solution around controllers. We also have a cloud solution because we know that there are cloud-first companies. There are people who want to leverage the cloud. That's what they want to deploy. But one of the things that we'll deep dive on today, because I think it's the one that flies under the radar, that's maybe the least understood, is our FortiGate. That actually you heard mentioned during the introduction as our firewall actually has a wireless controller on board. And a lot of people aren't familiar with this. So the next session you're actually going to see once I'm done is going to take you through that a little bit more, give you a little bit more intelligence around how that works. One nice feature from us, by the way, you can see the tagline along the bottom. For all of these, no license, no subscription to be able to utilize and configure your access points. So,
can we give you a standing ovation?
Yeah. Is that even for the cloud product?
The cloud product as well. There is, if you want to just plug it in and do some basic configuration, be off and running, no license for that.
Cloud is free, yeah.
So, give you a little bit more deep dive on each of these, but obviously the FortiGate you're going to get a whole session on, so I won't spend a whole lot of time. As I mentioned, built into the FortiOS, form factors that's available as either an appliance or a VM. As I mentioned, since there's no licenses, basically the license is what the hardware is capable of. So a smaller, lower end FortiGate can do less APs. Large scale FortiGate, more APs. And so it's just tied to the hardware. What you bought, that's what you get. It's compatible with all three models of the FAP that I talked about. So the FAP, the FAPU, and the FAPS. In terms of where we see these used, we see these both in small sites, maybe like a distributed enterprise type of situation where you've got a bunch of small places. They may have a FortiGate that they're utilizing for their security on site, and then they hang a couple APs off of it. Maybe they even use one of our FortiWi-Fis. But because we do have a wide range of FortiGates, we also see it in some large campuses where they're leveraging some of their firewalls that are managing the entire campus and protecting the campus to manage their APs throughout that campus. So it's actually a very versatile deployment methodology, and our penetration with the FortiGate allows people to very easily deploy and not have to put another box in. Now, I know one of the common questions you heard me talk about distributed enterprise might be, okay, so I've got a distributed enterprise of like 400 of these things. How am I going to manage all that? Well, that's what FortiManager is actually for. So we do have a manager that can sit over the top and handle that management across all those FortiGates so they're not drifting from one another.
Is that an app, an appliance, or a cloud instance?
So FortiManager, and folks from whom can keep me honest, is available as both a VM as well as an appliance.
Now, is that where the licensing would kick in with something like that type of appliance? Or?
There are some licenses on FortiManager, but it's licensed in terms of the FortiGates you're managing.
Okay.
So in terms of the APs themselves, we're still not putting a license there on the APs.
Even for the monitoring aspect of it, or?
It's for anything that's going on with the APs, we're not actually licensing on the APs, but given that the FortiGates in this model, the FortiGates are what's managing the APs, okay, you are paying for the licensing against those FortiGates.
Right.
As I mentioned, we do have a dedicated controller. I think there's someone in here, I don't remember if I met him or not, that might be using this. I'm trying to remember. Anyway, but yeah, dedicated RF controller, it's kind of exactly what you would think it is. It's also available as an appliance or a VM. This one works with the FAPU, so those are the access points that work with this. You probably now are guessing what the U for universal might apply to. The FAPU applies across all of our management platforms. Again, no licenses on the WLC to be able to configure and use your access points. Again, based on the hardware model you buy, that's how many licenses you've got. Now, we tend to see this more in campuses, mainly because if you notice, the minimum license like 50 to 3,000, yeah, small distributed guy with 2 APs usually isn't going that route. So we do tend to see this in the larger sites. It's also tends to be valuable at larger sites because sometimes that's where we see security and IT might be segmented from each other and they're staring across the battlements and security says, I'm not giving you a login to my box. Okay, I'll install my own controller. So we do recognize that there are definitely places where this makes sense. Now, from a management across the top of multiple WLCs, that's where WLM comes in. And so we have a lot of features here. And I noticed a couple people actually were tweeting yesterday about being able to do Service Assurance Manager. Told you there was a bullet on this. We've had that actually on WLM for quite a while, the ability to take a radio, flip it on, go do some troubleshooting with it. And to your question, this is also where, yeah, licensing would apply on FortiWLM, but not on the controller. From a cloud perspective, I mean, it's a cloud. I'm not going to try and dance around and tell you that our cloud is like some sort of magical cloud that's radically different than clouds as you know of them. Form factor is, well, it's a cloud. As we talked about and as you asked, there is no license to utilize it. If you do choose to buy a Fortinet subscription, then that gives you access to longer logs and some advanced configuration options if you really value those. But it's not mandatory. You can utilize it without that. And the FortiCloud option is available with all of our FAP models. Now, for us, we tend to see this in really distributed small remote sites. That's not because the cloud couldn't be used for a large site. It's just what we tend to see is oftentimes once you start getting larger, they probably have a FortiGate. So a lot of times for us, those flip to a different management style simply because of the options that we have. We're not forced to try and force everybody down one path for management because we have that flexibility. So that's why we don't tend to see the larger installments. Most of those guys end up going to a different management style with us. It's just what they have available. For the Authenticator, okay, how do I onboard people? We know there's more and more struggle. I know everybody, especially, I'm going to pick on them again, I know especially people like Keith love that captive portal. So if you're looking for that box that can help you from everything from your employees in terms of the Radius, LDAP sort of thing to get your employees onboarded, but also all the way on the other side for guests with BOID and certificate provisioning, et cetera, that's where FortiAuthenticator can come into play, can sit there, handle everything you might need for getting a device onto your network quickly, efficiently, and with ideally as little IT hassle as humanly possible. We can argue whether or not a captive portal is hassle for the person using the wireless, but I think sadly we all know that, like it or not, they are used.
Cloud, on-prem, appliance, or is it a service that runs on a FortiGate?
FortiAuthenticator is available as both VM and appliance, if I remember correctly. Now, one thing that's kind of cool is I can actually pair that up if you are, we're a security company, right? So if you really want to do two-factor authentication, we can make that easy because Authenticator can be paired up with our FortiToken product. In fact, we do that a lot here. It's amazing how simple it is. There's like a little app on my phone. If it sees me trying to log into a resource from home, my phone will automatically buzzes for me like, hey, you're trying to log in. Is this okay? Bink, I'm in. So it's really nice little feature, and it integrates right into the overall situation. I'll move kind of fast right now through FortiPresence, not because analytics aren't important, but as I said, I've actually got Krush coming up later. He's going to take us through a nice drive through FortiPresence. So we'll get a lot of chance to really double click here and get a lot more information. But obviously what we kind of look at from the FortiPresence and location analytics point of view is three basic pieces. One is the analytics piece itself, kind of what everybody usually thinks about when they're thinking about, oh, you do locationing? Oh, okay. So I can tell you if someone's present. I can look at the traffic flows. Yes, we do all that. But we also look at some of the social integration. We see a lot of people who value using a captive portal, I know, but they're using it as a way to actually capture information and better understand who's coming through. And then actually engagement tools. The ability to interact with the people in your environment so that you can kind of understand what they're thinking and what they're experiencing. And as I said, we'll go through this later on. I think it's a pretty interesting solution, and as Krush will talk about, with wider applicability than just where people traditionally think of it. All right, I know IoT is one of those buzzwords that I think a lot of people getting a little tired of. Really, IoT again? Yes, IoT again. And again, think of it from us with our security hat on. The complexity that we see with IoT is there's kind of three easy categories. There's the stuff, yeah, I know what this is. I want it on my network. Great, that's easy. There's the stuff that I don't like it, but it's allowed to be on my network. Well, that's also easy. This is the one people sometimes raise an eyebrow at me at. It's like, why are unwanted devices easy? Well, if you know that that device is an unwanted device, well, then it's actually easy. Because you know it, you know you don't want it, and you can take steps about that. The real bear of a category is that thing that's connected, and I don't know what the heck that thing is. Maybe it's something that Shadow IT put in, and maybe it's actually would be trusted. Maybe it's some new temperature sensor, or maybe it's some new patient monitor, or who knows. And it got installed, and I wasn't part of the decision-making process, so maybe it actually belongs here. Or maybe it's a new form of drone, and it's the last thing in the world I want on the network, and I don't want it. But if I don't know, how do I move from, I see a bunch of MAC addresses, what am I going to do, to taking some sort of actionable steps? And that's where our Fortinet product comes into play. So Fortinet is what allows me to go from that visibility of what's out there and really what it is. So I really identify and profile those endpoints to help me burrow in on what things are, then get control of them. And that's through continual risk assessment and making sure that they go where they're supposed to. So if it's a temperature sensor, it's really just doing what temperature sensors should do and not suddenly trying to browse the web. That seems odd. What's going on here? And then actually respond, right? Take steps. If it does start doing something unexpected, take a step. And one of the really nice things about the Fortinet product is we actually have better support for a whole slew of third-party switches, et cetera, for being able to contain these things and manage where they can go than any other product on the market. Now, I mentioned deployment. FortiDeploy is our kind of product around that. And one of the things that we kind of looked at with FortiDeploy, I know traditionally this has been looked at as a cloud solution where, hey, an AP reports into the cloud and it figures out what cloud controller to get to. But we see it's more than that. We can also let it bang FortiDeploy and figure out what FortiGate it's supposed to go to. So for example, maybe I deployed a bunch of FortiGates in a large campus and different chunks of them are supposed to report and be controlled by different FortiGates. Or maybe my FortiGate is actually at my central hub. Maybe it's in my NOC and it's managing remote APs. And how are they going to find it? Well, you can use FortiDeploy for that. It allows that zero-touch provisioning so that if I ship that AP out and the guy plugs it in, it's going to phone home to the FortiDeploy. FortiDeploy is going to go, oh, you need to report over there. Pick up, and that guy was just a ladder monkey, able to climb up, plug it in, got PoE, lights blinked for a while, and now it's beaconing. So that ease of installation, particularly in what we see as very IT squeezed situations, very, very valuable.
Chris, does Fortinet do radius?
Does Fortinet, I'm sorry, do radius?
Well, does anything in the Fortinet product line do radius?
Yes. Yeah. So
FortiAuthenticator
Authenticator is capable of doing radius. So the nice thing about FortiAuth actually is that I can do both my employee side of the house as well as my guest side of the house in one box. I mentioned SD-WAN, and it's as I mentioned, it's been kind of interesting to us to see that SD-WAN, as it's kind of come to fruition, is starting to tie in more and more with our wireless deals. And that was not something we actually predicted, but it's very nice. And our FortiGates are capable of doing SD-WAN. In fact, we kind of have some of the best of breed SD-WAN out there with the key features people are looking for. And I'm going to throw it out there. You'll notice it's a pattern actually with Fortinet. There's no additional license to enable SD-WAN on the FortiGate. You got a FortiGate, you have the capability to do SD-WAN. And this really makes for a nice synergy because virtually by definition, if you are looking for SD-WAN, you've got an internet connection. And typically, if you care even one whit about security, if you got an internet connection, you kind of want to block that internet from getting to the rest of your site. So you likely are already looking for firewalling. Well, this is perfect. You've got enterprise class SD-WAN built into your enterprise class firewall, and it didn't cost you additional money. So it's a perfect marriage. And again, we'll go through more of what the FortiGate can do, particularly around its wireless controller capabilities, in our next session. I mentioned also that we can provide the WAN for you. So our FortiExtender product actually is a great way to ensure connectivity. You know, it can be your backup or it could be your primary, depending on the site or what you want to use it for. We have a number of different models actually, so we can do anything from a USB-oriented modem to a built-in modem. This can be managed directly, hang off the FortiGate, runs off PoE. In fact, one of the things, I think we had one in the room at some point if people want to play with it afterwards. But one of the things that we were potentially looking at doing, but we decided we really didn't want to tempt the demo gods, was we were going to potentially run the demo completely through a FortiExtender out to the internet. And then, like I said, we know wires, sadly, are still going to be someplace in the overall deployment. So you actually have the ability to buy switching from us. Again, we believe this is very secure. Similar to our wireless being integrated into the FortiGate, I have the ability to actually manage these switches with a FortiGate as well. So I use what we call our FortiLink protocol. You'll probably hear FortiLink a couple times from Karush later. But I can really leverage that FortiLink protocol to tie these in. And what it means is now my switch ports are basically like a logical extension of the FortiGate. So as far as what I see in the UI and how I'm utilizing it, it's just like I've got a bunch more ports instead of having to manage a whole bunch of boxes individually. And I'm not going to walk you through the whole product line, just to give you a feel that, yeah, we've got switches, everything from kind of desktop level all the way through top of rack aggregation.
Routing in the switches?
Yes.
OSPF? RIP?
I'm sorry?
Routing? OSPF?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
BGP also.
BGP also.
Can you just go back one slide?
Of course.
I'm just going to ask the same question. Oh, forward one.
Forward one.
The total, yeah. For each one of the, oh, it fades.
Yeah.
Ask quick. The one halfway in between. For each of those hexagons,
Yeah.
which ones are services and which ones are appliances or VMs? It seemed like you've got a lot of
So pretty
things.
much what you're going to see, and oh, see, look, I tricked PowerPoint into staying there. Most everything you're going to see here, with the exception of FortiDeploy, is going to be some sort of physical thing. So the two things that are cloud, obviously the cloud controller is a cloud controller. FortiDeploy is a cloud-based service that if you want to utilize, you can. If it doesn't matter to you, then you don't utilize it. But
FortiPresence also has it.
FortiPresence, thank you. So we have a couple different models of FortiPresence. We'll talk kind of through what those look like, but that's not necessarily on-prem equipment. You're going out to a hosted solution for that. But Authenticator, APs, the gate itself, the extender, FortiNAC, FortiSwitch, you're looking at hardware.
So you kind of build a little kit of parts.
Yep. And that's kind of why this faded to this was, again, it's this idea of a fabric, that we really want to bring everything together and have it communicate and give a best solution across all the pieces that people need for their network. Because we really do see this as being a situation where if I'm only giving you security on one little piece, I'm not really giving you security. I want to make sure I can give you all the pieces so I can give you the most secure solution possible.
So your management analytics piece, is that like, I hate using this, single pane of glass for all of the little red dots?
So for
Do
the
you manage each of them separately?
So my FortiManager, for example, can manage a pretty good chunk of these. It's really going to depend on the nature of it, because if you start going into the larger fabric, there's a lot of the fabric that also reports into FortiManager, but there's also things that just from a structural point of view don't make sense to have like FortiManager above. So it does tend to be, as you look at the wider fabric, fairly product specific. But on the whole, FortiManager is intended as the overall management for the majority of the fabric that would need that sort of management.
So would you manage your firewalls independently, or like as a group of firewalls instead of, as Keith said, a single pane of glass, right? You want to kind of keep that.
So if you wanted to kind of harmonize your config across all your firewalls and you wanted to be able to manage those from one place, I'm going to try and stay away from single pane of glass. I saw the snarky comments yesterday. So no, you're not going to lure me into that trap.
Right.
But yes, if you want to manage the config across multiple firewalls and do that without having to log into each one successively, yeah, that's really what the intent is here, is to allow you to manage that in a much more simplified manner than having to individually log in, log out, log in, log out, because that doesn't scale.
I'm a big fan of having each solution sort of have their own little thing instead of trying to combine it all into one. But at a certain point, the customer really sort of demands that you say, hey, I'm not going to have an individual appliance or an individual device, and you end up with a big stack of stuff to do, especially to the smaller clients. Have you ever given any thought or consideration to maybe combining some of those things into a single either desktop appliance or something that's mounted in a rack or even a virtual appliance to sort of make it a little bit easier
That's a great question. And we are always looking at ways that we can actually address spaces that we may not currently. I think what you'll see actually as Karush talks a little bit about the philosophy we took even with the FortiGate is that is very much in line with a lot of Fortinet's thinking. So when he kind of takes you through some of the architecture of the FortiGate and what we tried to do, we tried to suck in as many boxes. It's part of why we made it a wireless controller. We said, well, why do I want a firewall? And I'm stealing a little bit of his thunder. Sorry, Karush. But part of the reason we got into this in the first place was we had security companies saying, you know what I do all the time? I have my wireless controller, and I have to slap a firewall right behind it because I don't want that stuff coming on my network without going through a firewall. Why am I putting two boxes right next to each other? Can you guys do something about this? And so that sort of thinking of, hey, if we start to see people are putting those boxes next to each other all the time, yeah, then we give a solid look to whether or not it makes sense to just bring those boxes together.
Yeah, and in certain instances, especially larger enterprise, then you don't really want that. You want to have that separation, and you also have the budgets that you can pay for that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's one of those things where it depends.
That's somebody's tagline.
Did he trademark that or something?
Basically.
I looked at them. It depends, based on the customer,
Kind of a big deal.
what the customer needs and requires and
Yeah.
can pay for in order to be able to play in that space.
Yeah, I think you're very correct. And in some senses, you can see that same logic in the reason why we have 3 solutions even for your control and management of your wireless. Because we do hear from people that as much as the FortiGate and consolidating that into one box makes sense for one whole group of people, there's another group of people that says, that's not going to fly for me. I'm still going to buy your firewall. I still want your firewall. But for me, architecturally or the way politically, the way my company works, that's not going to work. I need something else. Either I want cloud because I'm a cloud type of guy and we have to put everything in the cloud that we can, or no, I still believe in on-site controllers, but we don't, we don't work together. So yeah, we still see a lot of that, and we do evaluate a lot of it. So I think if you probably watch us over time, and as we get that feedback, we're going to continue to look at those places that we can optimize, because we really, again, you see it with the no licenses. We really believe in giving the right total cost of ownership to our customers and making sure that they are getting the most value and performance as they possibly can from their investment in Fortinet equipment.